una escuela de negocios que nace con una vocación de impulsar el conocimiento en la ingeniería, ciencia y tecnología. Es una escuela diferente a lo que existe tradicionalmente en España, porque no damos el clásico MBA, pero sí nuestra vinculación es 100% al mundo empresarial. De hecho, nuestros másteres ahora mismo enfocados al sector de la edificación, que todos sabemos que está un poco tocado, en el sector de la ingeniería industrial, con la cual estamos organizando un máster con empresas de ingeniería de reconocimiento internacional, y estamos desarrollando programas con diferentes empresas, sobre todo con una inquietud principal, que es dar un impulso profesional tanto a la gente que participa en las empresas, como también sacar al mercado profesionales que realmente aporten valor, y sobre todo que aporten valor para las empresas en la situación en la que estamos.
Bueno, Gattorna, no sin antes contarles algo de su biografía, que es bastante extensa. Como saben, es australiano. Desde hace más de 25 años, John-Gattorna se ha convertido en uno de los expertos más reputados en el mundo de supply chain. Es chair del Consejo Asesor del Instituto de Logística y Supply Chain Management. Es profesor adjunto de la Universidad de Victoria, Australia, y ha escrito más de 10 libros, entre los que cabría destacar Living Supply Chain en el 2006 o Dynamic Supply Chain en el 2010. Sin más, les dejo con John-Gattorna. Muchas gracias.
What I spend my life doing is trying to convince chief executives that we've got to move away from this idea of functional specialism and move more to this understanding that supply chain is a philosophy that pervades the whole business. Because one of the problems over the last 20 or 30 years that's caught up with us now, it's really caught up with us, is that we continue to manage our businesses vertically. We picked that up in the Industrial Revolution about 200 years ago. And it stood us in good stead. But now our customers, who were very quiet for the first 150 years, have actually started to feel empowered. The internet is really, social media has given the consumer terrific power. And so customers are actually buying horizontally. So, I think there's some fantastic upside here. And I know I've talked to a number of people since I've been here in the last 24 hours in Spain, and I know you're having a tough time here. Sort of some people are already starting to call Southern Europe the poor side of Europe, and the northern, the more wealthy. Well, we don't accept that. I think there's still fantastic opportunities in a place like Spain. But you've got to fine-tune the way that you align with your customers. That is the starting point. Waiting for government is of no value. You've got to get out there and do it yourself. And the interesting thing is that I predict that within maybe 20 years, maybe even earlier, the world will not be run by countries. Countries will be irrelevant. We will be run by, a colleague used the expression the other day when I was in Singapore, he called it the independent republic of the supply chain. The world will be run by the top 100 corporations who span the globe, who pay tax where they feel like it, and really will have a GDP bigger than most of our traditional countries. And there's nothing that the world can do about it. That's the way we're going. And those of you who are in companies here that have the potential to get to that sort of level, then I think it's a fantastic upside going forward. If you're purely a domestic company, then I think that's more problematic. Because you really have to look hard at what you're doing within your boundaries, within your borders. The thing we've got to do, start with, is to get rid of this notion that's been around for about 30 or 40 years, which is one size fits all. We know that doesn't work. It doesn't work in the European Union. That's the problem with the EU. It assumes that the one size fits all formula works for all countries. It's the same at the corporation level. One size fits all doesn't work with customers. Because if you think it does, it implies that all customers have the same needs. People have been feeling this build-up in complexity over the years, and most of that complexity has been brought upon ourselves, by ourselves. Companies feel uncomfortable, bureaucracy's building up, information systems are not that good, so people put their heads down, they start doing re-engineering, they hear a bit about this thing called Six Sigma, so they have a bit of that, and then someone introduces them to Lean, so they have a bit of that, and the worst thing we do, we install an ERP system, and everything goes downhill from there, you know. And because what it does, it creates, it limits our flexibility, and it drives us to a situation where in our search for simplicity and common processes and so-called simplification, we actually create a situation where we get out of line with our customers. And what happens then is we end up being 10% in line with our customers and 90% out of line with our customers, which creates us to operate on the exceptions day after day, and those exceptions drive our cost to serve through the roof. It gives us unhappy customers, and life just gets worse. You've got companies that, despite how difficult it gets, keep hoping for the good days to come back, and they never will. And so you get this resistance to change. It's insidious because it's very difficult to identify. And secondly, there are certain country cultures in the world where there is a natural desire not to change. And one of the worst of those, without a doubt, far worse than any Spanish countries, is Japan. One of the reasons why Japan has just completely disappeared from view in the last 15 years is A, they're in denial about their financial problems, so they're still trying to hide them, and B, as soon as they stepped outside the four walls of the factory and they were subjected to shipping strikes and labour problems and all the problems that we all deal with, you know, when we're dealing in international business, they couldn't cope with it and they haven't been able to change their ways. So the Japanese can teach us nothing about supply chain. They're very good at manufacturing, but that will only take you a certain way. What we have to do is design a method where we can cover a range of buying behaviours with pretty standard offerings which don't drive our cost structures up. So I could go on and on talking to you about what's changed in the world. I just hope that in Spain, given the sort of tough times you're going through, that you don't waste this opportunity to make significant change. But it will only happen if you have great leaders who have the vision to see what's possible and to lead the troops and bring the troops along with them by the force of their vision, and to do it as a single enterprise and to spread beyond Spain, and to drive the business growth, because that's going to be really important.